Hello beautiful people, welcome to Mimsy Vids. I am Marwa, aka Mimsy. Welcome to my channel. I am doing a video on why I left Islam. As you can see from the title, a lot of people actually asked me this question, as you can imagine, in my last video when I talked about my hijab story. People really wanted to know why I left Islam, and that was kind of a big question. If you haven't seen my hijab story though, please see, I have linked it down below. Please take a look. Also, we have so much more coming up. I know a lot of people want to see me with BD Vids, who is my husband. If you don't know who he is, do check out his video, I'll put it below. Hello beautiful people, welcome to Mimsy Vids. I am Marwa, aka Mimsy. Welcome to my channel. I am doing a video on why I left Islam. As you can see from the title, a lot of people actually asked me this question, as you can imagine, in my last video when I talked about my hijab story. People really wanted to know why I left Islam, and that was kind of a big question. If you haven't seen my hijab story though, please see, I have linked it down below. Please take a look. Also, we have so much more coming up. I know a lot of people want to see me with BD Vids, who is my husband. If you don't know who he is, do check out his video, I'll put it below. But we will have some challenges and vlogs and tags and all kinds of videos coming up with me and BD Vids. But also I've got some kind of beauty, makeup, lifestyle, kind of girly things coming up as well. So loads more to come. But for now, let's get into this video. So as I mentioned in my last hijab story time, I grew up in a very Muslim environment. I went to a Muslim school, everyone around me was Muslim. I was pretty much in a Muslim sort of bubble. You know, the only non-Muslims I knew were like celebrities on TV. So very much, this is my reality, this is life, this is everything I know since I could speak and understand. So I didn't really think about Islam. Islam wasn't a thought, it was just my life. But there was a point where I really wanted to learn about Islam and really wanted to kind of be strong in my deen and understand things better and be a stronger Muslim. So it wasn't just an identity thing, it did start to become, I want to know what I'm doing and believe in it more. And actually that was when my dad left Islam. So my dad left Islam and he kind of had a conversation with us and said, you guys do whatever you want to do. By us I mean his kids, and actually it was only with the two eldest, which is me and my elder brother, and he said, you know, it's totally up to you what you want to do, this is my decision. And I was just kind of thinking, because my background, unlike my dad's, was only with Islam in it. You know, my dad kind of came to Islam at a later stage in his life, so for me it was just an utter shock. You know, it was kind of like, there's no way that Islam isn't true, because this is life. Like, you know, you're basically saying the truth isn't the truth, is how I understood it at that time. And actually, you know, I just need to bring him back, and Allah will bring him back, and I need to be a better Muslim, and I'll pray, but also I'll learn more about Islam so that I can give him the answers that he needs. It was something that really upset me more than anything. It was never at that point something that made me doubt Islam. I didn't doubt Islam, I just doubted him, which is quite sad. I just thought, you know, he's just going through a tough time, poor thing, you know, I'll support him though, I'll still be there for him. and I will eventually bring him back, was the plan, basically. That plan didn't go accordingly though, it went wrong. So I kind of delved deeper, and actually what happened to me was the opposite happened. The more I learnt, the more I had questions, the more I couldn't understand. I don't want this to sound like it's a short period of time, because it was over a long period. It was over many, many years of me kind of, you know, from the age of, like, to give you an idea, from the age of like 14 to 22, 23. So during that time span, I was questioning, trying to understand, following different madhabs or different ways of understanding Islam, so that I could almost, I was almost adjusting it to fit, you know, kind of my understanding of the world, because there were questions I had, which I'm going to go through, and that didn't make sense to me. Eventually they just didn't make sense to me at all though, and hence why I left, and realised, to me this doesn't make any sense, and I don't believe in any of it. And what it is like for me, it's kind of like a wall, and you know, when the kind of, I imagine it as kind of blocks coming out of the wall, eventually the wall just collapses because there's just too many holes, that you just can't believe it anymore. I know a lot of Muslims will say to me, oh, it's because, you know, you doubted Allah, that's why he turned your back on you. And they have this mentality of, if you know, ask too many questions, or if you really doubt it, or if you're kind of going in from an angle like, oh yes, I want to be a non-Muslim, I really want to not believe in it, I really want to be analytical in that way, then Allah will turn his back on you, and he'll actually put a wall in your heart, so you can't even, so you're blind to Islam, so blind to anything. You know, I've had relatives say that about me. They're like, there's no point in talking to her because she's got the wall up. Allah would have put that wall, Allah would have put a shield, she's not going to be able to see now because Allah turned her back. But I just think that's so cool, because actually it was the opposite for me. My intention was to learn more about Islam, to not only bring my dad back, but to help me and make me a better Muslim. So it was to better myself in the religion. So, and you know, Islam's all about intentions as well, because you know, you can even get a good deed from an intention, is what we believe, or what they believe. Oops. I still include myself sometimes as like, what we, oh no, that's not me, I'm not included anymore. But yeah, so it's you know, and then it was my intention to always be Muslim. It was never my intention to leave. So as I said, it was quite the opposite. But the opposite did happen, of course. So it started off with petty things, you know, things like just little things here and there. There were so many, but I'll give you a couple. One is plucking your eyebrows. I thought it was so ridiculous, and I know people are going to be like, oh, that's why she loves Islam, because plucking her eyebrows. I'm getting to all the points, just hold on. But it started off with smaller things, that's what I'm trying to say. So also music, you know, music's haram, music's not haram, music does this, music does that. Little things like that which I thought were pathetic, to be honest with you, and their reasons were just non-existent. And that's when I started to kind of follow the more Sufi understanding of Islam, actually, because they kind of gave much more you know, kind of spiritual, metaphorical meanings to things. And you know, I mentioned that in my hijab story, that even my hijab evolved because I kind of had a more spiritual understanding of it. So that was fine, but that could only go so far. The questions that came up later that were really bugging me, that I couldn't understand, that didn't make sense, even Sufism couldn't reconcile them. You know, it was just the whole construct of Islam that I didn't agree with. So for example, Sharia law. So within Sharia law, I could literally spend a whole video just talking about Sharia law, so I'm just going to try and kind of touch on a few things. If you want me to go in more detail at some point, I definitely can make a whole video on it, but for now I'll just throw a few things at you. Women's rights in Sharia law are, to me, quite ludicrous. The fact that a woman's testimony is much less than a man's, it actually aggravates me. I can't, it's something that I can't kind of understand why that would be, and I feel like it's just so belittling to women who are just as smart as men are, and you know, we know that men are just as smart, their IQ levels aren't any less. You know, basically within Sharia law, for example, if you were to get divorced, one example, if you were to get divorced, a man can literally say, I divorce you 3 times, and Islamically you are divorced. A woman can't, because women are passionate, you know, they may say things in anger, so men won't say things in anger. Okay, you know, there's so many reasons that people give. Essentially, it's inequality, and it's quite vile, to be honest with you. That you know, however, there's no way of explaining that away. So a woman would have to actually go to a man, so would have to go to like a sheikh or a well-known Islamic sort of leader in that community and tell him, hey, I want to divorce him, is that okay with you? I don't know, that's just the weirdest thing to me. Another one is, for example, when even just simple things like when someone's getting married. When someone's getting married, you have to have witnesses, right? So you can either have 2 men, or if they're going to be women, you need to have doubles, you need to have 4. So that's just because, you know, women, I don't know, they're not able to give the testimony. Their testimony or their witnessing is much weaker, and that goes for even in a crime, in a criminal case. If something were to happen and they have an eyewitness, if it's a woman, it won't be as heavy as a man would in court, in an Islamic court. Yeah, so it's just, I mean, it's actually ridiculous. If this was in Western law, people would be outraged, you know, it's so ridiculous. So that's women's rights. I mean, there's so many others, but I'll put that aside for now, because as I said, it would be just too much of a long video. Also, the things that people often talk about, which I feel like is a little bit obvious now almost. The whipping, the stoning, the cutting off hands, the punishments within Sharia law are barbaric. And I just don't believe that violence should ever be a way of organising society or making it okay. I just don't think... I think it can lead to so many issues within society to have that kind of really violent way. Is it really necessary to kill someone when they've kind of, you know, done adultery or whatever, you know, cheated on their wife? Or it's just to kill someone, to have that in your hands. There's just so many levels to this that are, you know, really upsetting. But also, you know, people will say to me, oh, well, it's more of a deterrent. Don't you know, it's more of a deterrent. You have to have 4 witnesses for the adulterer to actually be stoned. 4 witnesses. And realistically, who's going to go sleeping with someone in bed and who's going to have 4 witnesses that were in the room? That's never going to happen. So everyone's always saying to me, you know, when I have asked people about this and kind of, you know, asked why is this there, you know, it seems a bit harsh, people have been like, oh, it's fine because, you know, it's not really going to happen. But then it just seems even more ridiculous. If it's not even going to happen, why is it there? It's kind of putting violence into a person's psyche, that actually there's, you know, you can punish someone violently if they do something wrong. I just feel like it could lead to violence, which obviously if you look at ISIS, if you look at whatever's going on in the world, it's, you know, it's very obvious that those things in there will lead to someone thinking that actually violence is okay in certain circumstances. And stoning someone to death, what a vicious, horrible way to die. It's just never okay, and that's never going to be okay in my mind. So the punishments in Sharia law, definitely something that disgusted me and I could never make okay. This also leads to what I found out about gays and lesbians. So gays and lesbians in Islam, their punishment in Sharia law is to be dropped from the highest building in that town or village or city or wherever they are, dropped from the building. If they've dropped and they've happened to not die by the drop, then they must be stoned to death. So as you can imagine, I was absolutely, I mean, that's shocking. I don't know if no one's shocked by that. I almost feel like they're maybe desensitized to it, because that's shockingly disgusting, like shockingly disgusting for that to be done to any person. And I never really thought about gays and lesbians, to be honest with you. you know, growing up obviously in my Muslim bubble, it was just, yeah, that's bad. I never deeply thought about it. I just thought, well, you can't do it because it's not natural and because you can't have children and whatever else that was kind of fed to me basically. As I grew up, you know, I did really, and I met obviously some gays and lesbians kind of as I grew up at university, and I just thought about it more, you know, when they're in front of you, it's quite different. Obviously, in my bubble, I didn't really meet any, well, not that I knew, but yeah, when I went out into the real world, I was kind of like, gosh, you're a really nice person. You're like a lovely ass person, and if you are going to be, if I as a Muslim would have to punish you that way, I would never be able to do it. How could I, you know, I just envisioned men just being like, yeah, that's why women don't do it and men do. But I wouldn't want my husband to do that. I wouldn't want my dad to do that. I wouldn't want anyone to do that to a person. It's disgusting. So it really, really upset me. And the more I thought about kind of, you know, I love people, and if they want to love, you know, another, you know, the same sex or another sex or whatever, that's like their decision. And the fact that really bugged me is, you know, they are born that way. I know religious people love to have this idea of they can be cured, and also, you know, that it's because of something. It's not, you know, a lot of the time they're born with it. They are born the way that they are, and it's a natural thing. You see it in nature. There are animals that are gay. You know, there's been gay and lesbians since the beginning of time. People always say that as well. They're like, oh, they're just recent because it's fashionable. No, it's become, we have become as a society much more accepting, and that's why you see them more often, which is amazing, which is great, which is people should come out. And I love all these kind of coming out videos on YouTube. I always watch them and I'm so proud of them, and I like cry with them, and yeah, so that was another thing that kind of really bugged me, and that made me think actually maybe Islam is just not in with the times, and love is love and everything's good and you need to be accepted. So another thing that really, really bugged me is the spread of Islam. There is a slight theme here actually, I've just noticed it myself. It's all coming down to kind of violence, violent things that kind of turn me away, because there's a lot of violent things in Islam. There really is, and I obviously don't find a need for it. So the way that Islam was spread was by the sword. As a Muslim, you don't really ask questions too much, you know, you're in your bubble, in my bubble. I know a lot of religious people have those bubbles. You kind of, oh my heart, you kind of just think, you know, this is the way it is. You know, you fight for spreading your religion, or yeah, you fight for the land. It's normal, and it was back in those days, it was fine. But the thing that bugged me was, you know, spreading it by war and again violence. I just think, isn't there a better way to do that? Isn't there kind of an intellectual way to spread Islam? You know, surely. I mean, now you see all these dawah men everywhere. You know, even that would have been, I would have respected that way more, you know. It's a good thing they're not riding around on their horse with a big sword these days, my God. Although there is ISIS, which I keep coming back to. So what they would do, I remember learning about this at school as well, is that they would go to a tribe or a village, or, you know, they'd kind of move around to spread it, keep going wherever little area they could get to, and they would arrive and they would say, right guys, we are giving you 3 options, because we're here, you know, me and the gang. The 3 options are, you can either become a Muslim and join us, or you can keep your religion if you have to, Christian, Jew, whatever the hell you are, keep it, but you have to pay us a tax, or you die, because we're going to go to war with you basically and fight you. A lot of them would say, heck yeah, we're going to have a fight, what the hell, like, this is my land, like, piss off, like, what are you doing? You know, if someone came into your house and was like, hi there, nice house, yeah, cool, I'm giving you 3 options, you'd be like, what? Get out of my house, what? I find that so bizarre, and I remember learning about it at school, and like my teacher being like, see, like the Prophet was so nice, you know, he gave them options. What kind of options are those? What? what option do they really have? The option is to die, essentially, if they don't commit to them. Anyway, so that I was kind of like flabbergasted by. I was like, how is this okay? You know, if this is a message from God, you know, who's above societal structure, who's above social norms, a God who is pure and, you know, loving, for a God to be like, yeah guys, actually just go around, kill people that don't believe you. I was like, there's no way that if there is a God, that he would, you know, be like, this is okay. It gets worse as well. I haven't even got to the biggest part that bugged me. That wasn't even it. That bugged me. But then there was another part to it, and that was sex slaves. So sex slaves in Islam, and I've mentioned this on BD Biz's channel before, was definitely something that almost kept me up at night. I was kind of like this, how is this okay? How is this okay? This is something I could never make okay. There's nothing that anyone could have told me that made it okay. I was disgusted by it. So basically what they are is that you go to war. Often it was at war, but essentially I don't know how it works really. I mean, maybe if they're just a lonely ass woman that doesn't have like a lot of stature, or she's just whatever on the street, you could be like, yo, you're gonna be my sex slave, come on, let's go, come on, chop chop, let's go, taking you home. And basically those women would, the Quran describes them as being the possession, so it's what the right hand possesses. So that's just one kind of reference to them, but there's quite a few all over the hadiths in the Quran. There's many references to these sex slaves. So basically men are allowed to have up to 4 wives, you know, if that gets a bit boring. And then also the men can marry a Christian or a Jew if they so wish, but a woman would only be allowed to marry a Muslim man, which doesn't make any sense. I think, you know, Muslims like to justify that by being like, yeah, but it's the man of the household, you know, but then Jews are like, no, the woman has to be Jew because she's the one that gives birth and brings up the children. You know, there are the two arguments, both are kind of whatever, silly, because really you should decide to marry whoever you want to marry, and for whatever reason, you know, it's just that it's just not equality. There is not equality in Islam, and that was something that bugs me. So I delved deeper into learning about these sex slaves. There was no kind of explanation for them. You know, sheikhs are just like, ah, well, it was those times. You know, if you have a servant, she's under your roof, men would sleep with her, whatever, you possessed them. What? It's like, how does it make any sense? It's like, what do you mean? Like, these women are possessions? How is that okay? It's like shocking that people think that's okay. Or do Muslims just brush it under the carpet? Or like, you know, what do Muslims do to make this okay in their mind? I really want to know. What do Muslims think about? What do they believe about these sex slaves? Do they just think it's fine? Maybe the guys are like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Shut up. Shut up. Yeah, the sex slaves thing's fine. Don't worry guys, everything's cool around here. Let's just keep it all on the down low. Maybe if you took them in, did you have to sleep with them? Do you have to? Couldn't they have created like a women's club and like had all the women that needed help? Something, anything. The money that you provided to feed her, couldn't they have put it into a pot like all the guys that had these sex slaves? Couldn't there have been another freaking option other than taking them to your house and possessing them and then sleeping with them? Yeah, it's just something that was really weird to me. The Prophet had a few sex slaves, of course. He had quite a famous one. I think he really cherished this one. She was supposed to be absolutely stunningly beautiful. Her name is Maria, Mary in English, and she was Christian actually. So anyway, there was a really interesting story that I read, so he had 4 wives basically. The Prophet had 4 wives, and he would kind of have a schedule of when he would have a night with them. So he kind of ordered his week according to which wife he would be with. And there was a night where he was supposed to have been with the wife Hafsa. So he was supposed to be with her that night. She was like, oh, my mum's not feeling very well, I'm gonna go to my mum. Is that okay? And he was like, yeah, you go ahead, you go be with your mum, don't worry about it. But obviously the Prophet was feeling a bit like, oh, I need a girl, I need something, I'm gonna hit up my sex slave. You know, gave her a call. I mean, I do this, I don't know how he got in contact with her back in the days, but somehow, like, you know, sent a pigeon or whatever, and she came over and they slept in Hafsa's bed, to which Hafsa returned and found them there and was like, what the heck, who's that? Get her out of here. I mean, I kind of envisioned like an almost cat fight, but that's probably not what happened, but who knows, okay? But she was like, oh my god, she was really, really upset. And you know, this is the tafsir, you know, describes it as she was very upset.
Bridget.
So also what made it obvious that Hafsa was really upset as well was that the Prophet was really trying to kind of reconcile with her and was like, I'll make Maria haram for me, I'll make a sex slave haram for me, please don't be upset, you know, please, like, you know, you can just imagine him just kind of begging like, no, I'll never do this again, no, kind of really grovelling in that sort of way, which obviously showed how upset Hafsa was. And also there was an ayah that came out the exact next day, how convenient, from Allah, that was like, don't make haram for you what's haram,